Hey, what is going on? How y'all doing out there in Atlanta, Bird Gang Land? How's it going? Also on my YouTube channel, Steve Sports Lounge. Get a chance, check it out, and see what you guys can make on that. This is Steve. It is March 28th, 2021. Big news today. Not even a couple of hours ago. Deion Jones restructured his deal, $4 million freed up to the Falcons' still very low cap space. They say that particular move ended up saving them $4 million, and now we have a whopping $5 million to spend on our free agents and impending rookie class. How are y'all doing today? It is a gloomy Sunday down here in South Atlanta, Georgia. Had a nasty little squall line of storms come through here, and hope everyone's okay. I know the folks over in Noonan caught it real hard with the storms that came through the other night. Hopefully everyone is doing well. So we're going to turn the page and start talking about what's next for the Atlanta Falcons. Deion Jones frees up a little more room. I don't know how much of a difference that's going to make, $5 million. When you start talking about the draft class that's coming in, and especially now that we are drafting so high, whether it's a quarterback or tight end or offensive line, no matter what, it's still going to cost us a little money. So we still have a little bit to go. But one of the things I wanted to address as we were talking about this is everyone seems to have an opinion about who should give up money when we start talking about these restructures and what it takes to free up cap room, in our case, for the Atlanta Falcons. I've never had a problem with a lot of these contracts. If you can go get your money, go get your money. That's what an agent's there for. And then when you see the amount of money that these networks are paying, did you guys look at the last contract that just came up a couple of weeks ago? The billions of dollars that are going to these owners for this franchise, for the right to televise the game on TV. That's why the NFL stays above float. That's why the NFL doesn't suffer that much, because TV is paying, because football rules right now. And for the last 2 decades, football rules. So when you see all of that money and you see one of the biggest things I always hear people complain about is they're not worth that. Says who? By today's standard, most of these players are multi-billionaires, and they should be. If they're making and generating that much revenue for these owners, sans the COVID year, they should be allowed to get the most money they can. I've never understood why some people feel like, well, you're getting paid too much. I would love to go to my job today and tell them, and say, you know what, I'm worth this, and they give it to me, y'all think I'm going to feel guilty about taking the money? In a league where the owners are, make no mistake about it, the owners are getting paid. I've never understood that. So when we start talking about Matt Ryan restructuring, Deion Jones restructuring, Jake Matthews restructuring, listen, they're doing due diligence to help the team. I get it. But I've also heard this narrative where people are like, well, when is Julio going to give his? When is, until today, when is Deion going to give his? When is Grady, who's restructured before, going to give his? Listen, folks, I'm not mad at them if they want to hold tight before start, restructuring their deals on the back end. When they convert that money into bonus money and end up spreading money out later on in the contract, do you know that decreases the chances that they'll probably ever see that last contract in the end? So when somebody comes and says, hey, you know what? We backloaded your contract at the beginning. Now we might need to work with it a little bit so we can free up some of this cap room. I don't understand the frustration of fans as to why that should be, just thought automatically. Oh yeah, the Falcons need help. Give back money. Absolutely ridiculous to me. When you look at baseball and basketball and the way they have their contract structured, the guarantees in their contract, they kind of got it made. And then most of those basketball contracts, I'm just jumping sports for a quick second, talking about who's the guy getting ready to sign with the Lakers, Andre Drummond, where they're going to try to work out a buyout, where they have that in place where they're saying, okay, dude, we're probably not going to keep you to the end. You want to leave. We want to get rid of you. Let's figure this out so I can free you up and you can go wherever you want to. Looks like Al Horford look like he's dealing with that as well. But why? Dude, if you have an opportunity to go to a team that you know wants you, you should be able to go negotiate with that team and say, okay, well, I'll take this as a buyout and then leave. Now, this Falcons situation, that's nobody's fault but the regime before. But every person that comes and complains about what Matt Ryan makes, who now I'm not even sure if he's in the top 10 of quarterbacks. He definitely, I think he was number 8 or 9 last I checked, but who knows? 2 years ago, he was the highest paid player in the league. 2 years from now, he's not even in the top 10 overall players, and I think he's barely top 10 as far as current quarterbacks. And don't get all twisted with the cap hit and everything like that. I mean, there's a good chance that 2 years from now, he's probably not going to see the end of this contract, possibly. And then next year, what people don't realize when we start talking about, well, Matt's cap hit is $48 million. We will never get out of that. Says who? And if you want to get rid of somebody that bad, you'll take the hit. Say if you end up signing your future this year in the draft, and he comes along Patrick Mahomes like to Alex Smith, and then you'll make that move. There are ways to get around this salary cap. New Orleans has been doing it for years. New England has been doing it for years. It's not a given. I keep seeing everybody panic. Oh, there's no way, there's no chance that he's going to give up. Yeah, right. If they want to get rid of Julio, Matt, Grady, anybody, they'll figure it out. It's not that hard. Frank, what's going on, buddy? Hi, Lisa. How are you? Frank says, what's next? I think extend Grady and then trade back with the Panthers, Denver, or Patriots. And Frank, I know you've been on the trade back scene, and I don't have any problem with that thought process. I'm still, listen, I haven't changed my mind one bit about the draft. And there is still, in my mind, I think you go get a quarterback. And I'm sorry. And I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. We'll get some of these comments out the way. Christian says NFL really needs to crack down on these contracts, make sure these players are getting guaranteed money. And that's what I'm saying, Christian. It's so easy from the outside looking in for us to make these judgment calls about NFL players getting paid. But do you see what this league is making? And when you go to the NBA, the same thing. They only started opening up the wallets in the NBA about a decade and a half ago. So when you see these players making the supermax, $45 million, $30 million, and you say John Collins, he isn't a supermax player, which he isn't, but he isn't a supermax player. He doesn't deserve to get that money. Look at what these owners are making. The TV money for these sports are outrageous. So if you see the owner making that much money, why wouldn't I, for my client, in Matt Ryan's place, in Matt Ryan's and Tom Coughlin, why would I not want him to max out as much money as I can? And then when you come to me 2 years later and say, hey, I need to restructure, if I say no, as it seems like Julio has done this, I mean, whose fault is that? That sounds like TD's fault. Travis, what's going on, my brother? Good to see you coming in here. Travis, admin of Birds of Prey group that just started up. Congratulations, brother. Can't wait to start chopping it up in there. Rusty says, phone not tonight, phones line open. It will be in about 10 minutes, Rusty. I'm going to open these phone lines up and let y'all tell me your opinions about some things in a couple of minutes. David says, if the guy we draft, whoever he may be, outperforms Matt in camp next year, I have no problem having a nearly $50 million quarterback as a backup. And the new TV money kicks in 2023. We'll just be fine. And you know what's going to happen in 2023 as well? In 2023, that cap is going to go from here to here. We only got the hiccup this year because of COVID. That cap in the NFL continues to go up. The last time they signed the last TV contract, if I'm not mistaken, I thought I saw the numbers where it went up $17 million in one swoop. It doesn't stop. People are going to watch this product. It is not a secret. The NFL is a cash cow. And if I'm a player and I'm putting my body on the line every day, different than basketball, different than baseball. When you see baseball and basketball and you see all the guaranteed money out there and you're a football player and you're telling me, wait a minute, I just signed a 3-year, $60 million contract where you told me I get $45 million up front, but you have the right to cut me after year 2. What is that? Those basketball contracts, they're like an albatross. Dude, ask any team who's getting Russell Westbrook right now, are they getting their money's worth? But they got to pay him. They have to pay him. So I'm not mad when I hear, well, Julio doesn't want to give any money back. So that's not his problem. He didn't oversign and overpay for these folks. He didn't go out and get Dante Fowler and overpaid him. He didn't, so we have to start thinking about things like that when we criticize the players, like it's the players' fault. Players out to get their money, especially in football, where your whole career could be over in one injury. No, I don't blame them one bit. Christian, my number one problem is the NFL is dangerous. Look at Ryan Shazier, from the Steelers. His career was cut short, and he was a future Hall of Famer. And I'm going to tell you what, the Steelers did him right. The Steelers still kept him on the contract and still kept him on the roster so he could get paid. He stayed on there. So when you start thinking about situations like that, it baffles me to hear people say, oh, these NFL players get paid too much. Yeah, right. Now I go through one game of hits, slams, finger yanked and muscles spasm for one game's worth. I'm probably done for about 3 months. These guys put their bodies on the line for our entertainment every week. I don't have a problem with them getting money. Christian, I think Arthur Blank needs to take a pay cut if he wants to win a franchise. Yeah, right. Yeah, and good luck on that one too. And look, it's a capitalistic system. I don't care what y'all say. It's about the money. Y'all can make it. Y'all can sit here and pretend all day you want to. This is about money. And the players are going to get paid. I'm sure Debo, when he restructured his contract, let me make sure I'm getting. Yeah, he's going to get his money up front. But when you sign those contracts, you're thinking about the length of that contract. You're thinking about the back end when things might deteriorate, when things might fall off. You're not thinking about in the now. In the now, you're thinking, okay, I can go out here and play. But you got to think about that. Hey, John, what's going on, Jay? I said, you got to pay the cost to be the boss. Give me my money. I don't understand the logic when I've seen this on posts several times, and I'm not going to get into, which position should be paid more. Naturally, of course, you're going to say quarterback, but then now you're looking at these wide receivers, so-called elite wide receivers, $17 to $20 million. Quarterbacks, 30 to. If you're basically an above average quarterback, your second contract will probably land you somewhere between $30 to $35 million. 3 years ago, when Matt got that in his extension, we were screaming murder. Now we see Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. All of those guys got more. And what do 3 or 4 of those have in common? They're already with another team. So no, I'm not trying to hear that. Jermaine said, have you talked about the 49ers move and put more emphasis on the Falcons? That's going to be my next topic, Jermaine. You jumping the gun just a smidge, but that's fine. Since we're on that subject, let's talk about the draft. Draft moves made this week. San Francisco makes the big jump. Trades up with Miami, who ends up in turn switching with Philadelphia for Philadelphia jumping into that number 6 position. So now the top 5 are Jacksonville Jaguars, New York Jets still at number 2, San Francisco at number 3, the Atlanta Falcons at number 4, and the Cincinnati Bengals at number 5. Now, right now, if you're Terry Fontenot, you have to you have to listen to folks. Even in my wildest dreams, myself, of wanting to get that next quarterback, despite what everybody else says about you sit him on the year, he'll sit for 2 years, we'll waste him. Ridiculous. I'm not even going to get into that now. But with Jacksonville, it's a done deal. Trevor Lawrence might as well go ahead and start suiting up and ever. The first part of this equation is, what are the Jets going to do? And I don't blame the Jets one bit. The Jets are holding out to the last second. The Jets are waiting to see who's going to show more interest. Somebody's going to show some interest. I'm trying to see how far down the Bears are. I'm trying to see how desperate Carolina gets. When you start thinking about that run of quarterbacks, it's probably going to end after pick number 5. Sounds like the offensive lineman Sewell might be the only one picked that's not a quarterback that's in the top 5. So if you want to make a run right now at a QB, you need to talk to Jacksonville, the Jets, the 49ers, and the Falcons. Obviously, the 49ers aren't going to talk to you because they just jumped up to number 3. Now, and the rumor mill is Matt Jones. That just shows to show you sometimes how a workout can help you. Thoughts that they are enamored with Matt Jones. And who knows? Matt Jones, he was good. He was good. I just may not have put him as a top 5 pick, but if he was around in the second round, I'd jump on him in a heartbeat. Nothing wrong with that. Somebody had to throw the ball to Waddle and Smith. So I give him credit. Yeah, I'll bite. I'm not sure if I get him at number 3. But San Francisco didn't jump to number 3 to get Perry Sewell, especially when they just made Trent Williams the highest paid offensive lineman in the history of the NFL. I don't think they jumped that high to get another offensive lineman. So San Francisco is going to get a quarterback. So where does that put the Falcons? It puts the Falcons on the radar of every other team that's looking to get a quarterback. Let's run down the list just for craps and giggles and see what we got. Number 6, the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, nice show, but only about a handful worth of work. 3 games and 2 quarters worth, which is why Doug Peterson is gone. Do you put all your stake in Jalen Hurts right now? Are you ready to say he's my next quarterback? I don't know. The Detroit Lions, they just traded for Jared Goff. They're set. Now the other team, our nemesis, second nemesis, Carolina Panthers at number 8. Obviously, the Teddy Bridgewater relationship hasn't worked. Did not give them the success they thought they would have. Do you think they would come up with a package that would jump up to the number 2 position? Falcons aren't going to trade with Carolina. Falcons will trade with pretty much any other team, probably more AFC team, but they're not going to trade with Carolina because they wouldn't hear the end of it if they gave up an opportunity to get somebody that's right down the road in Charlotte and that's beating you 2 times a year. The Denver Broncos, are they that enamored with Drew Lock? Are they thinking to jump up and try to get somebody else? From the Denver standpoint, since Flacco left, I don't think they're going to make that move either. I think getting too many young quarterbacks, you want to get some veterans and some young folks. You don't want to just get all young people there. And last but not least, at number 10, the Dallas Cowboys, who just signed Dak Prescott, who becomes the next highest paid quarterback, which will probably last about another month or so until it's Lamar Jackson's turn. So when you start looking at that list, the Atlanta Falcons have a coveted spot at number 4. I think about what Chicago Bears, what are they trying to do? They put Andy Dalton on their Instagram or whatever as their starting quarterback, and the fans went wild. They should. Andy Dalton is not the answer, as you saw in Dallas. Does Chicago try to make a jump? Chicago is still smarting from making the jump to number 2 a few years ago to get Mitchell Trubisky. And that would be the same GM that would be making that move. So I'm not sure. They might be a little gun shy about jumping up that high. The Falcons I'm trying to tell you, the Falcons become the players, man. If I'm Terry, I don't make a move till draft day. San Francisco has let you know that they're getting a quarterback. You already know what Jacksonville is going to do. The Jets and the Falcons, I wouldn't say a word. I would wait it out. Because if you're going to come get that number 4 position, the position I think that will jumpstart this franchise, for me, I can't take less than 2 first-round picks, maybe a second, a third. I got to get at least 3 picks this year and maybe a future pick in 2022. Or if you have a player that's talented enough, I'll take a player. Got to fit them under the salary cap, but I got to get a player or something. But you sit back and you listen to all the offers. That's what I would do, at least. Darius, we really control the draft now when you look at it. We know the first 3 picks will be quarterbacks. You know, well, and don't be so sure about the Jets. Because the Jets are even in a much better position than the Falcons. Listen, Sam Darnold is not that horrible. Has the results been bad? Yes. And see, the same talk that they have in New York Jetland is probably the same talk we have in Atlanta Falcons fans. From the outside looking in, I saw Darnold. That wasn't his fault half the time. And as a matter of fact, there were a couple of games they should have won, see the Raiders. And you talk about athleticism, Sam Darnold is not that bad. Now, going into the fourth year of his contract, you have to make a decision whether he's worth the future investment or not. Or do you take the lineman out of Oregon, try to solidify that line and make it better? But you're right. The Jets and the Falcons right now are in total control of what's going to happen next. Frank, I know this is crazy, but I can see 5 quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, I can see the Bengals trading back also between Panthers, Denver, Bears, and Patriots. So 2 teams are going to spend for a quarterback. That's a very good point, Frank, because Cincinnati is not in the quarterback business. Cincinnati is good as long as Burrow is healthy. Burrow showed some nice flashes last year. So you're right. Cincinnati is in the catbird seat. Listen, these first 5 picks, don't be shocked, y'all. These first 5 picks might all be quarterback, like Frank said. In some order of Lawrence, Lance, Fields, Wilson, and Matt Jones. It could truly be a top 5 quarterback pick. That's why, as an Atlanta Falcons fan, and an Atlanta Falcons fan who is trying to look to the future, in 2018, this franchise invested in the offensive line. And I know it's a different regime, so I'm not going to get into, but that was Dimitrov. For everybody that kept saying, oh, we need to fix our offensive line. Well, one draft, we drafted 2 offensive linemen and brought 2 free agents in here. So did you blame him for that? He tried. The problem is, as we found out, obviously, a couple of years ago, their scouting staff is not good at picking folks. That's why there's a new GM in town. But you can't say they didn't try. We've never in the history of Matt Ryan ever tried to get an offensive line. That's not true. That's not true. Sam Baker, they tried. Peter Kontz, they tried. Jake Matthews, who I know people want to ding him. Probably the best offensive lineman we've picked since Dimitrov was here. McGarry and Lindstrom. The verdict is still out. It really is. This is only their 3rd year. So it's not like we didn't try. Maybe we made some talent evaluations that weren't on, but it's not like they didn't try. Travis says Sam Darnold has all the tools, but they got to get their kids some weapons to succeed. I'm not sure if the Jets are ready to pick up Devontae Smith that early. But you got to think about it. But who knows? I mean, it is going to be very interesting to see how this draft ends up when we start getting into that. Twan, if I do trade back, I busted heads, but we need to get our guy for the future. I agree with that. What's going on, Trey? How are you today? Rusty said reports came out about 3 hours ago. Eagles are not sold on Hurts. Talk about a wild front office. Well, listen, Philadelphia became very dysfunctional. And Philadelphia was dysfunctional, in my opinion, when you turned around and stopped playing in the 3rd quarter of the last game of the year. I don't care what was going on in Philadelphia at that time. To me, that was just weird. And Doug Peterson has paid the price for that. But you did that. You got rid of your coach. You got rid of your quarterback. Now you're left with Jalen Hurts. Now, I'm not surprised that Jalen Hurts is going to be questioned. Listen, second round pick, that's not bad. Quarterback can start from the second round, but you need to get him around a veteran. And maybe that's what we were missing as far as, that what Philadelphia was missing, that veteran presence. You had Carson Wentz, who was visibly pouting on the sidelines because Jalen Hurts got his shot. So he wasn't getting friendly with Peterson. Then you have Jalen Hurts, who gets pulled in the third quarter of being able to win a NFL game. Now you got him mad at Peterson. Yeah, that whole front office thing is dysfunctional. Jimmy says, still no Julio restructure. Wonder why. Again, Jimmy, and what's going on, man? I'll say this again. Everybody is not going to want to restructure their contract. Julio Jones only extended 3 years. It's not like he signed a 6-year contract. He knows the end is closer than is much closer, I should say. Why would I want to give up money if I just signed for 3 extra years only? I can understand in Grady's aspect, in Debo's aspect. They're at the beginning parts of their contract, even though Grady's can be voided here in another year, which is not going to happen. But they're near the beginnings of their contract, as opposed to Matt, who we're going to probably end up playing the Drew Brees game, kind of like they did. And great that Terry is here because he was part of that, where you're going to probably end up restructuring every year. And he's going to end up getting a boatload of money up front until we get to a point where we say we could take the hit. Or the salary cap catches up and we can make up for that gap. It's happened before. They can restructure every year if they want to with Matt Ryan. They can. Nobody's to stop them from doing that. John said, who is going into the left tackle spot? You mean the right tackle spot? Because that was where Gano was filling in on that position. That's a good question. There is going to be competition, I'm sure, for that. I'm sure everybody's looking at Sewell and thinking, hey, that might be a good pick. There are some people that even think if Sewell comes in that you move Jake Matthews into guard, and that'll solve your guard problem. But right now, Caleb McGarry, that's your right tackle. You technically have your bookend tackles. We have to give those guys an opportunity. Offensive lines don't just jump in and do that great all the time. Only person I can think of recent memory is the guy from the Colts, where he came in and kind of solidified the line, made Marlon Mack a star for a year, Quentin Nelson. Other than that, you usually don't see offensive lines mature that quick, gel that quick. For all of the lauding we gave for the Atlanta Falcons offensive line in 2016, they were brutal in 2015. We chastised Chris Chester and still should. But by 2016, at least they worked good together. And that's what an offensive line has to do. They have to gel together. We can't just automatically feel like they're going to just click like that just because they get on the field. And just like even with this guy Sewell, who knows what he's going to be? All the competition he's had has been in the Pac-10 or Pac-12, whatever they want to call it. I mean, I don't know. And he was out last year. So we still don't know what he's all about. David says, McGarry and Lindstrom have not been that bad. They haven't. And if you noticed a lot last year, they ran to that side of the field. When you talk about young linemen, you have to let these guys develop. They're 2 years away before we start thinking about contracts for either one of them. They know how important this year is for them. This is a big prove-it year this year. This is almost like Tack going into his third year, and what should have been Beasley going into this third year before we thought about signing him for his fifth-year option. But that is what we should be giving those guys opportunity to do on the offensive line. The spot in the offensive line we need to worry about is the center and the guard. Hennessy gave us a little flash last year. Not sure I was that impressed. I know we played Tampa Bay the last 2 or 3 weeks, and Tampa Bay's defense was beating up on everybody. So I don't know whether that was a product of Tampa Bay or was that a product of Hennessy not being ready. Could have been a little bit of both. But in Kansas City, they weren't exactly throwing Matt all over the place in that game. It's probably why that was one of his more successful games. And then the guard position, the elusive guard position on the left, where we tried Carpenter. We tried, what's that boy named? Brown. We tried everybody in that position. It hasn't seemed to work. Hennessy was in that position when Alex Mack during the first part of the year. Hennessy did a better job at guard than he did at center. So it's center to move to bring somebody in here. And think about this. I mean, I keep hearing this thing about if we draft a quarterback, we're wasting him by sitting him on the sidelines, which I don't know who made that. It's almost sound like one of those baseball unwritten rules. But who made the rule that just because you sign a quarterback that you must throw him out game one? I don't care if he's the number 1 overall quarterback. You can still have him play behind a quarterback. He's got to learn he's got to learn the game. All that trial by fire, ask Joe Burrow, did he mean to run out there that quick and get injured in game 5 or 6? Because you got to adjust to that stuff, man. Look at these guys who waited. Look at Lamar, who waited. Look at Mahomes, who waited. Look at Aaron Rodgers, who waited. I'm telling people, really, in recent memory, Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson, those are the only two, contrary to a lot of you guys, the only two successful quarterbacks. Yes, Matt Ryan is 112 and 93. Those are the two successful quarterbacks that actually started from the jump and found success, found even success. No, I don't want to hear about Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott had a 1 year, and after that, he kind of swooned a couple of years. Then he got back to the playoffs. Yes, he did. But Dak Prescott is not in that category to me. Dak Prescott right now falls into was the next person up. He was the next person up. He was the next quarterback up to get paid, and he got paid, and more power to him. He should have got paid. Shouldn't have wasted time on that. Twan, if we do get Sewell, I'd move him inside instead of Matthews. Sewell is super physical, and I think he'd make his presence felt on the inside. I don't think this new staff is sold on Hennessy. Yeah, and listen, these guys might not be sold on all the offensive linemen. And that's the other thing that people have to realize. When they bring in new general managers and new coaches, and you have a team in such flux as we are, there are a lot of people that mad that now Dallas has turned into Atlanta West with Neil and KZ. But who's to say that Neil and KZ got a great rating outside of Atlanta? They fit a scheme Dan Quinn wanted, but are they really that great? I mean, I enjoyed Neil when he was here, and I'm not trying to act like I'm not throwing the trash moniker and all that stuff. All I'm saying is you have different eyes looking at this roster now. They could be coming in here and saying Matt Ryan is an average quarterback, a less than average quarterback. I don't think that's the case, but they could. You could get in here and have them say, I would have never spent money on Todd Gurley. or come in here and make the judgment that every one of the linemen are a hot mess. And if I could, I'd draft all 5 of them in the next draft. But you also gave them a bank account with insufficient funds. So on top of the insufficient funds, on top of the poor talent evaluation, you're expecting these guys to turn this stuff around so quickly. Folks, that's why I'm trying to tell you, instead of trying to restructure and twist and turn now, start making plans for your future. I'm going to be very upset if we don't pick a quarterback at number 4. Not upset enough to lose my fandom for the Falcons, but you don't get this type of opportunity. Matt Ryan is going to be your starting quarterback in 2021. There's no doubt. I'm not trying to start anything with that. Matt Ryan will be starting in 2021. Matt Ryan deserves to start in 2021. He's been a professional quarterback. He's won 113 games, over 92 games. He's made the playoffs in 7 of 13 seasons. Is it 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of 13 seasons. He absolutely deserves the opportunity to start. And on top of that, we don't have a choice because we never had a backup that was pushing him anyway. All those things were controlled by another regime. But if I'm Terry Fontenot, and if I'm Arthur Smith, and I'm looking at this opportunity at number 4 to go out and literally put jumper cables on this franchise and start it back up, I'm going out and getting that guy. Especially if it's somebody that fits your scheme. Why am I going to get Perry Sewell if I know I'm in the twilight years of my quarterback? Can Matt still throw? Yeah, he can still throw. I'm not feeling all the noodle arm and all that junk that people say. He can still throw. But I'm just saying, is he still Matt Ryan of 4 or 5 years ago? And keeping it real, of 2018. 2018, he had a great year. That was the year the defense wasn't there. He had a great year there. Was 32 touchdowns against 7 interceptions? Great year. Losing team, great year. But I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend like the future isn't coming up soon. Green Bay made the decision to do that with a quarterback. And I know it was a later round pick, but it doesn't matter. You basically have one of the top 3 quarterbacks actively in the NFL and arguably one of the top 10 of all time. And you pick a quarterback in your first round. What do you think the Green Bay Packers are thinking? They're saying we don't want to get left if things get sour quick. Say, for instance, we do all this tweaking with Matt Ryan, which doesn't include a quarterback. We do all of it. And then it turns out that as we see the trend, Matt Ryan doesn't get back to where it was. And you turn around on the bench and no more Ben Kirk. I'm joking. No more Matt Schaub. Joking again. No quality person to back you up. You have to start thinking about the future at some point, y'all. We really do. Travis says, and coach can make like 6 plays a game in the red zone for the new quarterback and run the Wildcat or something that fits a field or lands. And then that's a possibility, 10 more touchdowns to go with Matt's TDs. And that way you can play them both at the same time. He'll be your new Taysom Hill, as Travis is alluding to. And listen, before we start going into mobile quarterback or whatever, which is not what he was doing, but say, man, I will take Zach Wilson in a heartbeat. Zach Wilson, if Zach Wilson is available at number 4, I'd jump on Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson got an arm. Zach Wilson can run. He can improvise. He can throw on the run. I'll take him in a heartbeat. So it doesn't have to be an overly athletic, overly running quarterback. Just something, just someone else that I can look forward to saying, you know what, that person is the next one. I'm sorry, y'all. I got caught up with some of the comments. June says they waited, but they aren't loaded with Lombardis either. Rodgers and Wilson put up numbers like Ryan, yet still watch the big game on the couch, usually just like the rest of us. June, the only problem with that is, June, they're in the playoffs too, the last 3 years. Let's not act like Matt Ryan is making the playoffs. And it's not all Matt Ryan's fault. Y'all get twisted into thinking because somebody suggests a change that we're saying is all his fault. This team lacks defensive line. This team lacks defensive edge rushers. This team lacks an outside linebacker. This team lacks now they lack safeties. They lack another side of the other side of the field on quarterback. Nobody is trying to say it's 100% Matt's fault. But if I see a 35-year-old quarterback whose last 3 years have been tons of yards, but 18 wins, there's something that says maybe the team isn't responding to him as much as the organization is trying to tell me. Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff were head over heels in love with Matt Ryan. These next folks might not be. And that's not an indictment against Matt Ryan. That's an indictment against the folks who were making decisions before. Because June, if they really loved Matt Ryan and he's as great and as powerful and all wondrous like everyone thinks he is, then they would have built around him better. So all that hyperbole about Super Bowl winners, Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, yeah, they can sit at home. And for the record, neither one of them is sitting at home. They're making the playoffs. They're not winning the Super Bowl, but I'd rather be sitting here having a conversation about playoffs than sitting here trying to fill up a balloon full of Matt Ryan love letters, talking about how great he is when he's 7-9, 7-9, 4-12. And yes, he blew about 4 games last year. He by himself. Coach Kevin, what's going on, brother? Scheme changes will help up front. Hen will be much better in the stretch scheme. The offensive line coach is good. And that's good news to hear because I don't think it's a secret that Arthur Smith is going to want to run the ball. My deal is, Kevin, and I want to get your thought about that, is who we're going to have to run the ball. Mike Davis is a nice choice. Obviously, with a 2-year, $5 million contract, that wasn't a contract saying that you're our future at running back. Matter of fact, it would shock me if one of the top 3 picks for the Atlanta Falcons is at running back. But it's a good, solid move to have him in there. My question is, what are they going to do to fill in those spots at running back? I'm not sure if they're fascinated with Ollison or Ito Smith at all, but we got to figure that running back situation out. Timothy, how you doing, sir? Say, yes, sir. Zach Wilson, if he is there at number 4, he is the future. He is the future. Travis says, though Matt's not the problem, he's not the solution either. That's actually really good. Travis, draft Devontae Williams to go with Davis. That's actually not a bad deal. I wouldn't mind doing that either. Orion, I've got to thinking we might not draft a quarterback first round. Reason saying there are a lot of veteran quarterbacks that's going to be available that still have years left in them. So we don't know how many years our new coach and GM was given by Blank to turn this team around. Prime example, Brady to the Bucks win the Super Bowl. So we might go defensive or offensive the first round. I guess my only issue with that, Orion, is this organization. The one thing I do think Arthur Blank wants to do is he wants to try to turn around as quick as possible. And I understand your point about a veteran quarterback, but if you bring a veteran quarterback in here and they are, and we want to win, if you bring a veteran quarterback in here, it's going to cost you about 15 to 25 million at this juncture. You're already investing that in Matt Ryan now for 2 quarterbacks, basically. So why not get a quarterback on a rookie scale and be able to figure out for this next year or 2? There's no harm in waiting for a quarterback. There's this big, you got to play the quarterback. You don't have to play the quarterback this year or next year. Now, in my real world, I would love to play him next year, but you don't have to. Do y'all think Jordan Love is going to play next year? Do y'all actually think Jordan Love is going to start this year over Aaron Rodgers? He just went to the NFC Championship game. Should have won the NFC Championship game. Do you actually think that's going to happen? No. So I hear you what you're saying. That's not a bad scenario, but I just think you get young, man. You get young. Rise up, RJ. How you doing, Twan? That's just like quarterback. Every staff wants their guy. We don't have to keep Matt Ryan, but I do want Matt Ryan back at least for this year, and I'm almost certain we're drafting a quarterback unless we just grab a guy in the next week. But quarterback is our pick. And that's my thinking all along. If y'all remember me at the end of last season, I told everybody, Matt ain't going nowhere. Now, I didn't realize they were going to do the restructure thing. Matt is not going anywhere. But you got to get the heir apparent in here. And at number 4, you don't get these opportunities that often. Matter of fact, you don't want these opportunities that often. For all of those, say trade back and get somebody else. Look, if the Falcons trade back, I'm going to figure it out. But right now, we have so many holes on this team. We have so many. Even if you did trade back and you got a plethora of picks, do you have elite players? And I say elite. We don't know what they're going to be. But do you have prime players or do you just have bodies? So eventually we're going to get to the point where we just need bodies. But you have an opportunity to get some of the highest rated players on the board at number 4, and especially at quarterback, then you go get them. And there's no doubt. You go get them. David says 2018 was actually 36-5. Okay, it's even better. I know it was a great year. That was the year that everybody got hurt. The whole defense went down. And we had to throw Isaiah Oliver out there. Marlon, when we see Matt Ryan with a decent defense and a good running game, then I judge him. But Marlon, you might not get it. Marlon, that everybody keeps going to this. If Matt Ryan gets this, if Matt Ryan gets that, we've been here 13 years. Matt Ryan has never had a perfect offensive line. Matt Ryan has never had a perfect only thing Matt Ryan probably has had his whole time is decent receiving. And at the very beginning, he didn't have that. He had Michael Jenkins and Roddy White at the beginning, and Roddy was pretty good. We keep making excuses. Matt Ryan is no different than Aaron Rodgers when he doesn't have an offensive line. Russell Wilson, who doesn't have an offensive line. Why is it that those guys can rally those teams? Russell Wilson hasn't had an offensive line, a running back, and before last year, really didn't have a wide receiver. DK Metcalf come on the field. That's his first legitimate awesome receiver. Not even the cat. I can't remember what his name is. The one who was making the catches a couple of years ago. He wasn't elite. DK Metcalf has a chance to be really elite. But Russell hasn't needed all of that. Aaron Rodgers hasn't needed all of that. And yes, he failed against Tampa Bay, but I'm pretty sure for most of the teams in the NFL he's going to play against, Patrick Mahomes doesn't need that. We keep making excuses. If you're great, you make your team great. In 2016, Matt Ryan was great. His offensive line was not that great in 2016. Levitre, Mack was the best. Mack was the most solid part of that offensive line. You had a young Jake Matthews who was still getting penalties. You had Alan Levitre. You had Chris Chester, and my man on the side, got re-signed. I can't think what his name is right now, but he left about a year ago. But that wasn't a great offensive line. We had a very nice running game. But it's not going to be perfect, folks, especially when you're paying the quarterback $35 to $40 million a year. You can't get a great offensive line every time. And how come it is that the great offensive lines always end up playing for the scrub teams? You know how we always go back to if this running back was playing with this offensive line, he would have run for this. What is the Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith thing that they used to always talk about? Ifs and buts, candy and nuts, man. You got to stop making excuses for that. Elite is elite. Great is great. Great quarterbacks make their team great. There was a stretch where Matt Ryan made this team great. I would argue the first few years Matt Ryan was here, he made this team great. We didn't have a great team. Even Julio, his first year, had the drops. This team wasn't great. Matt Ryan played solid ball. He was the epitome of a quarterback manager, a quarterback manager. He absolutely was. He didn't make super mistakes. Matter of fact, he chose like one game or two to make a mistake. The one against the Raiders where he threw 5 interceptions, and the Cardinals he threw 5 interceptions and won both. But as a quarterback, I have to overcome some of the shortcomings of my team. You can't make excuses, man. I mean, you can and feel good about it that you do. That's fine. But I'm so sick of that. If Matt Ryan, if the Falcons had Aaron Rodgers, we'd be in the Super Bowl. Corey, if we don't get a quarterback now, we eventually have to give up the farm just to get back to a top 5 draft pick. Why take that chance when we're in place to get our future quarterback? June Heiner, respect your opinion. Man, dude, June, and June, don't stop, man. You still give me your opinion. Dude, I could be on another sheet of music with you, but I'm never going to sit here and try to act like my opinion is better than yours, but I'll just give another side of things. Please keep rolling. I don't mind being wrong about something or another opinion. That's fine. Toya, the GOAT of QBs was selected in the 6th round. Top 5 QBs is not a guaranteed success. Coaching and coordinator putting the quarterback in a system to make them succeed is the formula. And it is, Toya, to a certain extent. Now, the Brady situation you are absolutely factual. 6th round pick. I got you. Drew Bledsoe was having a really good year that year. It wasn't like Tom Brady came and turned it around. Drew Bledsoe was having a good year before he got hurt, and Tom Brady came in. Now, Tom Brady came in and steered the ship right and did what he had to do. But I'm just saying from a standpoint, Toya, we're at a point in this franchise where we keep talking about, right decisions. The folks who left, and we have to separate that. The Mitros and the Quinn, we got to leave that in the past. And even when Shanahan's were here, we got to leave that stuff in the past. They made some really bad decisions for this franchise. You're right by saying putting the right coaching and coordinator in place, who's to say that they are enamored with Matt? Who's to say that Fontenot them might say, you know what? I like Kyle Trask. He's going to do the best for this franchise. I'm throwing a name out there. I'm not saying Kyle Trask will. But you're right to a certain extent. And yeah, maybe it might not be one of the top 4 quarterbacks, though I think it is. But that's such a 1 in a million shot with Tom Brady. And give Tom Brady credit. When he got the chance, he took the ball and ran with it and never stopped. Still not stopping. Rare situation, though. Sean Mitchell says, trade back. I hear you. June, New England isn't going after Jimmy G now after they offer a nice haul to move up from 15. Do we take it and go quarterback in the latter round, or wait a year and still go after our future quarterback at number 4? Now, New England would be one of those teams because you know why, June? New England stockpiles draft picks. If you think about the teams that you always see in the draft that have 12 to 13 picks a year, that would be a team to go to. Now, if New England says we can give you 2 seconds, a third, and a 6th, and of course the first round pick, you would be foolish not to. And that's where you switch things up. So yeah, I'm not crazy. If the right team comes with an offer you can't refuse, then you go take it. And especially New England. Yeah, New England, they're full of draft picks. Brother Ricky, how you doing, man? Good to see you dropping in. We are good. I got some news for y'all too coming up. I know just to tell y'all about in a little bit. Marlon said that's a possibility, but okay, you talking about some of this. Sean, Matt Ryan is here to stay for the next 2 years. Who said he wasn't? Even if he is, nobody's arguing that. That's the point where people get so blinded. Nobody said Matt Ryan wasn't going to be here next year. Nobody suggested Matt Ryan is going anywhere. What does that have to do with still drafting for your future? And then tell me the argument and tell me the unwritten rule that says a quarterback has to jump into the game first game of the year just because he's picked in the top 5. There isn't. Yeah, I agree with you. Matt Ryan will be here for 2 years. Might be on the bench next year, but he is. Franchises don't go by the same blueprint, y'all. And when you're in a franchise that has been in a funk for a couple of years, you got to try some things that are unconventional. You can't just go by the same game plan. You have to think outside the box, y'all. Ricky says quarterback is the only choice. I think so too. Sean, we are getting killed between the trenches, so bring in a rookie quarterback. We would still lose. Sean, you just drafted 2 guys on the right end. Matt Ryan was a big part of him getting killed last year. To my friend John Harris, who I have argued for almost a decade, he will tell you Matt Ryan has a tendency to look his receiver down, hold the ball a little longer than normal. Now, was that the case all the time? No. But if you go back and we evaluate a lot of these sacks that he took this year, Matt holds on to the ball. I don't want to hear that about you're going to get a rookie quarterback killed. And guess what? According to your statement a couple of years ago about Matt being here, you ain't going to have to worry about the rookie getting killed. You sit him on the side. That's how you solve that. Jimmy says just don't trade with Carolina. No, we're not going to trade with Carolina. Ricky said we can't leave that on the table. Quarterback and pass rush. O-line is next. Absolutely. Dub says preach. Sean, Russ is not a mobile quarterback. Russ is an athletic quarterback, though. Doesn't have to be a And there you go, get stuck on that again. I don't want Russell running for 100 yards in the game. You know what I want Russell to do? I want Russell to extend the play so my wide receiver can come back to the ball and I can end up catching him in pretty much like a backyard play. What happens if he goes to the 10-yard slant, comes in, and that doesn't work, he gets out the pocket, and I can still have my quarterback look downfield and I see my receiver coming there, I want a quarterback with the ability to do that. They don't have to be a rushing quarterback. I'm not looking for Lamar Jackson to get 1,000 yards. I'm not looking for that. I'm just looking for a little bit of athleticism. I'm not saying Matt still can't throw the ball, but there are so many times this year that I have seen that is a skill set that this NFL has gone to. This is the skill set that teams are passing us by on. Does that mean we get rid of Matt this year? No. That means that eventually you're going to have to adapt to what's going on. The type of quarterback that Matt Ryan is, Tom Brady, multiple Super Bowl winner. Drew Brees, just retired, Super Bowl winner. Phillip Rivers, very overrated, but people seem to think he's a Hall of Famer. And who that's just Ben Roethlisberger, multiple time Super Bowl winner. Those guys are either on the last leg or they're gone. Look at every other team, folks. It's the move for athleticism. That doesn't mean running quarterback. That doesn't mean harken back to the days of Mike Vick. This means you must get athletic at that position. And that's not an indictment against Matt. Matt was drafted during a different time. Matt was drafted at the time where that was the go-get. That was what we were supposed to get. And Matt is still serviceable. That's fine, but you still have an opportunity to look out for your future. And so what? He sits for 2 years. I had like he gonna make money. I don't understand it. And guess what? If Matt happens to be successful, you know what? You see if somebody wants to trade for the guy. That's what you do. That's crazy. Mortals keep. Lord have mercy. Oh, man. Ricky says, Matt needs to be a mentor to the heir apparent. Fields wants to come here. Yeah, let's eliminate the sell, trade back, and take trade back, draft back, and take a quarterback. We have to get the right pick, and that's a QB. Billy Ray Fields, do you honestly think that those are the only 4 or great quarterbacks in this year's draft? You said yourself we have holes. Why not add picks and go defense and running back? Other quarterbacks trash Newman. But there's nobody that's really jumped into my head that aside of the top 5 guys that we talked about that I'm not sure. Now, Arthur Smith might have a different idea, so we'll see. First call of the day. How you doing, man? This is Steve. Identify yourself. Talk to me.
This is Mr. Fly High Podcast.
What's going on, brother? How you doing, Ron? Good to talk to you, brother.
Good to hear from you, man.
All right, but what you got to add? I was talking a little bit about we're talking about the draft, obviously, the topic of the month. I think I already know what your feelings are on this, but tell me what you think about the Falcons' choices of staying at 4 or trading back to get more pieces.
To me, in 2 situations here, we need to do. We could trade back and fix our defense that we've been missing for the last 3 years to be a top 10 defense. Or we should get the next quarterback or the face of the Atlanta Falcons.
What, as a fan, Ron, what is more at this point? What's the most important thing to you, especially in coming off 3 years where we've been disappointed. What's the most important thing to you?
Defense.
Okay, I can agree with that. I agree. We do need defense. We need help defense. We've been saying for years, give Grady some help. Give Debo some help. Those guys do need some help up the middle. I mean, definitely. I know we didn't get a chance. I hope Marlon Davidson turns out to be worth the pick that we made. We got to give him an opportunity. But what do you think about cornerback? Do we do free agency, or you go through the draft and get your next cornerback?
See, I go through free agent with the quarterback situation.
Okay, and that makes total sense. I can absolutely hear where you're saying that we do need help in that end. Ron, I'm gonna let you go because I got a couple of other calls on here. Let me ask you one more question. What is your feeling about players restructuring their contract to get under? Do you feel like it's an obligation, or do you feel like that's my money, don't try to get in my pockets?
I feel like if you want to win, if you want to play in the Super Bowl, you need to take that.
Okay, I see it. Say, for instance, if I had an all-pro year. Say if I'm all-pro. Say if I'm, who was the MVP last year? Aaron Rodgers. Say if I'm Aaron Rodgers. I did everything in my power to win the game next year, and then I'm due the 5th year of a 6-year contract where I'm supposed to make $45 million. Would you give up? Would you make the adjustment on your salary?
Yes, because it all about how can you help the team go to the next level. How can you reach the Super Bowl and win that chip? What do that team need to get better?
I hear you. That makes sense. Y'all talk to Ron on the Flying High podcast. He will be available for you, my brother Ron. You have a great day, my friend.
All right.
Take care, buddy. I'm listening. I'm talking to Ron, and I'm listening to some of these, watching some of these comments. My buddy Morals King wants to say, give me a quarterback who's going to win games. It doesn't matter his skill set. John Harris said, what are you going to do when they don't make statues no more? It's coming. I'm sure talking about Matt Ryan. Said we definitely need bodies. I don't argue with the point that we need bodies. I'm at a point where, do you actually think this team is 3 or 4 bodies away from sustained success? Not in the moment success, but sustained success. And when I mean sustained success, do you think Matt Ryan with 2 or 3 moves is going to be able to turn this thing around? Because I swear we've been trying to wait for 18, 19, and 20 for the turnaround, and we haven't received it yet. And that's one of the things that just irritates me, because I see this franchise stuck. We're stuck in the mud, that we're in Georgia clay, and we can't get out. And when you have an opportunity to change the vehicle you have, change the tires in the traction, you can make that move. The bodies are great, but there's no guarantee those bodies are going to help me be successful in 2022, 2023, or whatever. Caller, how you doing? This is Steve. Thank you for joining me. Identify yourself for us.
Hey, Steve.
I think that's a voice I recognize. What's going on, my brother?
Oh, man. I was just listening. Man, we are in, once again, another form of a state of flux. I mean, it's just like a toilet that just never stops flushing. I mean, it's just spinning round and round and round and round. Because if it ain't one thing, it's something else.
Right.
And this year, 2021, you got to be a quarterback. You got to. And you pointed that out most eloquently, but it's not going to do a lot of good for people who don't see that you need to be ready when the time comes that the starting quarterback is totally ineffective.
Right.
Now I'm really worried. I'm really worried about the offense and the defensive line because we've been talking about the offensive line, but if you're going to run a 3-4, you're going to need a nose tackle.
And what position haven't we addressed so far in free agency? We haven't addressed any. We haven't addressed, and I know what kind of guy you're going to say because you kind of from the same school as me. That Grady Jackson, nasty, slobbing, 330-pound guy who's in the center to fill things up.
Yeah. I mean, that particular that nose guard or nose tackle is not going to get any sack. He's occupied.
There you go.
Pressure.
Yep.
Your sack's going to come from either one of your little ends or the linebacker. That's where your sack's going to come from.
Yep.
And see, one thing that I was encouraged about with Dean Pease that he said we coming from everywhere. We're not going to be afraid to blitz. That's one of the things that I said, hallelujah.
Well, it encouraged me when he talks about that because we haven't had pressure probably since. And look, sans a blip on the screen with Vic Beasley in 2016, we haven't had true pressure since Abraham left. What to you, Jay? What do you feel? What quarterback out of the 4 to 5 that we've been talking about? What quarterback do you feel fits the mold of what you think the Falcons' direction should be going forward?
Steve, I'm kind of handicapped as far as answering that question because this man came from a ball control pound, slobber knocker, not bubble type of system. Which the quarterback is going to have to be, I guess, more of a game manager. It's not going to be like you put the ball in the quarterback's hand and you trust the quarterback to do whatever it is that needs to be done to win the game. Because, see, this man is impressing me as being somebody who would rather just tear your head off with a fullback and a running back and just push the ball down the field and let the quarterback throw the dogs off the center. Now, Matt Ryan is going to be perfect for that if he can be efficient and complete passes when it comes time for him to pass. You understand what I'm saying?
Listen, you and I have talked about that, and listen, Matt Ryan still is able to a certain extent complete passes. 60%, 65% of his passes. That's not a joke. That's 2 out of every 3. But I was talking to somebody earlier about Matt Ryan and the sacks and talking about him getting killed. Give me as your as I move on to the next caller before you leave. Give me what you were trying to tell me for years. One of you and I our biggest arguments that I finally came around to this year about staring these receivers down and how that creates. So sometimes I would say if he got sacked 50 times last year, 25 of them were his fault for doing that.
Somebody posted a stat from Pro Football Reference about time to throw or time before pocket collapse.
Right.
Matt Ryan is number 2 in time to throw or before the pocket collapse on average at 2.6 seconds. Okay? Now, how can your offensive line be that bad if you're the number 2 person with time to throw in the league over Tom Brady, over Aaron Rodgers, over Patrick Mahomes, over everybody?
Because maybe the offensive line isn't that bad. Not saying they're great, but maybe they aren't that bad.
They are a primarily pass blocking offensive line.
Right.
Now that's one thing that's been the problem. It's been a pass blocking offensive line, because just like you and I used to talk, hey, if you got a 240-pound running back, you need a 240-pound hole for that man to go through.
Absolutely.
And if you're not creating that with the help of a fullback, which you desperately need it, because see, I go back to Michael Turner. Michael Turner wouldn't have gotten none of the yards that he had in the first few years of him being here if it wasn't for
Big Obi Mahala. Yes, sir. Probably one of the most underrated free agent pickups we ever made.
Yeah, and Bobby Petrino was the one who got it because he knew what he wanted to do if he had stayed here and coached Michael Vick. He needed somebody back there in that backfield to watch for Michael Vick.
Right.
You know, we gained him for a Matt Ryan. And thing is, it was just like when you had Over Mahala back in the backfield, it's just like you had another offensive lineman back in the backfield. You know, because this man was opening holes, this man was blocking, this man was doing everything. And that he really was what made the offense go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, he was the man. Jay, I'm going to let you go. I got some other calls on the line, brother. I appreciate you. Catch John Harris on the line, folks. He is all over the Atlanta Bird game, brother. I'm going to holler at you in a little bit, okay?
All right, boss.
All right, buddy. Yeah, I appreciate John's perspective all the time. I'm going to go back and catch up with a couple of these comments real quick before I take another phone call. Billy Ray, who has some good comments. Typo Mond is the quarterback I was talking about. Mond is I actually like Mond from Texas A&M. I actually, if you were going to get a quarterback late, Jamie Newman, I ain't going to lie to you, I'm kind of ticked off about the Georgia situation, but he was pretty good for 1 year at Wake Forest. So not bad, but that actually not too bad of a pick if it was a later round. Sean says we have too many holes. I know what you're talking about. Brother Jansen, how you doing today, sir? Falcons need a leader. Falcons need a quarterback. Won't win with Ryan. Listen, I think we could talk about Matt Ryan and what if this franchise needs a joke. This franchise needs a defibrillator. I've talked about it several times. We need a jump start in this franchise. That's where you go. Corey says you can have all the right GMs and coaches you want, but you have to have the talent on the field to make it happen. And Corey, this is where this regime comes in. When you made this move for the general manager and the head coach to come in, your first thing was to say, can these guys evaluate talent? Because there was a disconnect, I should say. There was a disconnect between Thomas Dimitroff and what kind of talent we need to make our team better. We were horrible in a lot of these drafts. Now, did he hit on a couple? Of course. Devonta Freeman gave us a couple of good years. Should have never signed him to that much on the second contract. Grady Jarrett, very good pick. Yeah, Keanu Neal, for all it's worth, rated as a second-round pick. He wasn't elite, but he actually filled the space as a safety for when we needed him. They've made some pretty decent picks, but overall, we haven't made the great picks. We haven't had the scouting staff, which ironically came from New England, that New England has, where it just seems like they were getting third, fourth, fifth-round picks that always turn out to be good. Now, it also takes good coaching as well. So maybe that's what we've been lacking as well. The last real coach we probably had on this team, it seems, was Kyle Shanahan, and only had him for a cup of coffee for a couple of years. So maybe with this new coaching staff, as John alluded to, Dean Pease being able to get with these guys, Dave Ragone being able to talk to these guys, maybe we can pick that up. Travis says, man, listen, we can't win with what you got now for the last 3 years. So you mean to tell me that a couple of bodies going to help Matt go through his progressions or help him be clutch again? He's not that anymore. Meaning it's gone, be the same thing, because the quarterback's mindset ain't going to change regardless. Thus, a new quarterback. Sean's Kevin, elephant in the room. If Fields is there at 4, Arthur Blank makes a business call, putting them feet in the seats and getting a need. Kevin, and out of all the people, I thought you would probably be somebody that would disagree with me because I know you being the coach and player that you are, and that would be something. But I said that in the offseason. Business-wise, that would be a great move for the Atlanta Falcons. Because if you're like me and you're in that stadium, which a lot of you are, and you see those red seats, and you're at the point at the end of 2019 when I was having a conversation with somebody 2 sections over without yelling, that's what you want back in that building. Justin Fields would do that in a heartbeat. Now, I'm not saying compromise if you feel like somebody else can fit that particular position. But I also say from a business standpoint, that would be a great move. Don't compromise, but that's a good move. Jansen, because Ryan better than Steve Barkowski and Vic means he not that guy. Listen, let me tell you something. If Ryan was great, teams would want him in his contract. Ryan is good. Another great point. You know, it would have been just as easy to take that hit, that cap hit this year and trade Matt Ryan. I'm sure people ask, if y'all don't think Kyle came running, do you think Kyle Shanahan truly didn't try? He probably did. But these folks who came in new here, they probably don't know what to do right now. They're not sure. So they don't want to give Matt away too quick. But you have to think about that. Twan, my question is, do we really have a lot of holes on this team like we think? I mean, we lost 12 games. 8 of them we lost by 7 points or less. We had poor game management and coaching. So what are our holes? Listen, trying to tell you. Are there upgrades we need? Isaiah Oliver. You know, yes. But you do have a point. Maybe with some fresh coaching, maybe with some real coaching, that we could truly coach up some of these guys. There was a time when I thought Kendall Sheffield was going to be actually much better than he has been. And who knows, maybe the guys they have coming in can coach them up. We do have holes, though. And more importantly, we lost a lot of folks in at the end of the year. We really did. Marlon says, this draft is deep at quarterback. I believe we draft one in the later rounds and develop him behind Matt. With our coaching staff development in 2 years behind a true professional, we'll be all right. I'm not against that part either. I'm not totally against that. If the aforementioned Kevin Mon was there, I know people mentioned Jamie Newman. Remember this name, Sam Ellinger? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he has anything left. 2 years ago, everybody thought he was going to be this number 1 pick and everything, and he's turned out to be nothing. I'm not against that because we still don't know what this coaching staff can do. So to your point, Marlon, maybe we can work some magic with a 2nd round or 3rd round pick. I guess I'm just so jaded by what the last folks leaving the door that left out the door did. I'm just not, I don't know if these guys can do that. But I hear you. That's not a bad idea. It's not. Hopefully we could. Orion says, yes, if we grab Fields, that would definitely fill the seats. If you think about it, most of our fan bases are people of color, and Fields would give us the excitement and hope of getting a Super Bowl ring. And I'll even go one step further than that. What is it that this franchise has gotten accused of for the last 2 or 3 decades? Y'all don't ever get any Georgia Bulldogs. Y'all let him in. He played for Georgia for a year, so that would count. We went and got a former Bulldog. So maybe that's a connection, but being a local guy, that helps. Man, you imagine if Trevor Lawrence came to this franchise, if he had a chance to get here? Oh, my goodness. Woo! That'd fill up the seats even quicker. Twan, Russell Wilson is an improviser. Twan, he looks to throw the ball first before he runs. I've seen Phil and Lance and the other quarterbacks in this draft be improvisers. And that's what we need. We need a guy who can use his legs to get out of trouble, not running for 100 yards. We don't need that quarterback. One, we've had that quarterback. And two, we have some weapons right now. Right now, our wide receiver core is top 5 in the NFL. Amongst all the things that we talk about right now with the Atlanta Falcons, the one thing I'll say is our wide receiver core is set. You're going to probably get somebody else anyway, probably for special teams or something like that. But barring injury, this wide receiver core is going to do some things this year. I'm not worried about that. I think right now our concern, as many of you have told, blocking, pass protecting, and making holes for these running backs that are eventually going to come. Mike Davis, whoever we're going to draft. Don't be shocked if we draft 2 running backs this year. I'm not sure how enamored they are with Ollison or Ito Smith. I'm not sure. They haven't given me anything to be enamored about. Sadarius says, draft a quarterback, put some fire behind Matt. He might have another MVP season. Look what happened to Rodgers last year. That's been one of the things I've been preaching all along, Sadarius, I'm sorry. That's one of the things I've been preaching all along. Matt Ryan has never had anybody to push him. They had the one game where Matt Schaub came in and threw 400 yards, and everybody was like, see, he can do it. No, Matt Schaub was not going to push Matt Ryan. You bring somebody in here to push him, somebody that can improvise, that can move around in the pocket, that can throw on the run. Things that Matt did one year, but things that I think some of these younger guys might be able to do at a better pace than Matt's doing right now. Corey, Matt has had his chance. His play will not be in line with the future, but Father Time will decline. Oh, man. Sean, it's going to be interesting to see what the Falcons do with that pick. Hopefully we get to go to Mercedes to see the draft. Hopefully we do. And speaking of which, I got my first vaccine shot last week. Share that with you. It wasn't that bad. Smidge of soreness later on that evening, but not that bad. But I know a lot of people are against that stuff. But listen, in order for us to go back, I got a feeling it's going to be somewhere along that line. Hopefully it gets down to the point where we don't think about that kind of stuff. But that's going to be real. I got a feeling in order for us to go back, that's going to be the move for that. Tidy, I don't understand this crazy fan logic about us not drafting the quarterback because he won't start as a rookie. There's no football rule that says your first round must start if he's a quarterback. Sometimes you simply invest in your future with your draft picks. It's one of those things, Tidy. I was saying this was a baseball unwritten rule that I draft him number 1. That means he can't play. I mean, no, that means he has to play. Snap 1. That's ridiculous. And we have a luxury of having a very professional. You don't get more professional than Matt Ryan. If I had any person I would draft, whether it be first round, second round, a third round, what quarterback would I want them to learn from than Matt Ryan? You know, aside of one that maybe has won a Super Bowl. But Matt Ryan would be one of the people that I would say. So, great position. RJ, I feel like we need to finally fix the defensive line and the defense on the whole. I don't think we restructure Matt and not give him the best chance to win. I do agree we need a quarterback for the future, but we really finally need the defense fixed. Well, not only the defense fixed, RJ, but the coaches to help it get fixed. I think there was something going on with that coaching staff. Ulbrich had us playing so out of this world at the end of 2019. And then all of a sudden to start 2020, and then you went with the split. You called two plays. I called one play. I didn't understand what was going on with that. There was something behind the scenes that was a disconnect with that. That was crazy. RJ, so I think it's best to trade back and get extra picks if it makes sense for the team. But if we stay at number 4, it's best to draft the quarterback because no defensive player in this draft is worth the 4th pick. And I think that's what you start thinking about. If there's somebody that's going to jump up and come get that 4th pick, they better come with a grocery cart full of picks. I'm not trading for 2 picks. I'm not trading for 3 picks. I'm trading for 4 at worst, and the 2 of the first 4 had better be first and second round. Well, you're going to get the first round swap, but you better be giving me at least a second rounder and possibly a third round at the number 4 position. They're jumping to number 4 for a reason. They're coming to get the same quarterback you're thinking about getting. So you make them work for it. The Jets are doing the same thing. Make them work for it. Make them jump up there and get it. Toddy, one day we have to come to terms with you just need brand new energy in your locker room. This is a reason owners hire and fire coaches. That's where I feel the Falcons are with Matt Ryan. It's not that Matt isn't good, but I think both sides need a fresh start. Folks, that is basically the conversation we're trying to have. It's not personal. I have zero hate for Matt Ryan. As a matter of fact, as crazy as it sounds, if Matt went somewhere and won the Super Bowl, I would actually be happy for him. Because he did give us a lot. 2008 to 2012 doesn't happen if Matt Ryan isn't here. I had an argument. One of our fellow game members, Eddie Thompson, who sometimes goes in directions that even a magician would look at and say that's weird. But he was going to tell me that Glenn Dorsey should have been picked over Matt Ryan in retrospect. And his reasoning for saying that is because we wouldn't have lost to the Saints a lot. We wouldn't have lost 28-3, the 28-3 game, blah, blah. And there are people that think like that, folks. There are people that think that there are some things that Matt Ryan does that are 100% his fault. It's not. Matt Ryan gave us good years. But after 3 years in a row, which I'm not sure if we've had a stretch, at least the stretch he went where we were getting rid of Smitty and going into Quinn, at least we were 8-8 that one year. But we haven't had 3 losing seasons under Matt since he's been here. And whether you believe it's all Matt's fault, which is not, to Tidy's point, it's the stench of it all. And fair or unfair, the finger is always pointed at the one who's making the most bread. And the one making the most bread is Matt. And Julio. Too many times we ignore the fact that Julio is a part of this too. Julio, love Jet. I'll show you a picture over here with my son and Jet. Love Jet. But Jet has some accountability too in this thing. Between the two of them, 1/3 of the salary cap. Don't believe me? Go count it. Everyone has to be accountable. Sean says, Steven Johnson, what gives us a greater chance to get back to the Super Bowl? Woo! Man, that's a loaded question, Sean, because I think there are so many multiple things. Look, for the record, you all are right that we do need a lot of pieces. I also think infusing some different energy as tight end, I'm piggybacking off of him, infusing some energy in this franchise with a new quarterback is something sometimes it is for no rhyme or reason. It just helps. It just brings something different. You say what you want to say about the Giants last year. Giants are playing different. And it took a year for Daniel Jones to kind of get everybody's attention and stuff like that. Do I still think he's the greatest in the world? No. But Eli was just filling a space. Even though we'll never forget the 2 incredible wins against the Patriots, they even realized it's time. Why do you think Taysom Hill was getting so much time in between Drew Brees? Drew Brees was going to be there, but that was the little hint that it's time to shake it up. The Chargers pretty much told Phillip Rivers he was playing on borrowed time. And the biggest case of them all, if New England actually thought Tom still had years left, why would they let him go? Why would you not pay that man and just keep it going? Sometimes you just have to change the chemistry. And there's nothing wrong with that. Same thing here. Why does that have to be different? Why? Pancho, the 3 best quarterbacks is coming off the board in front of us. So do we go defense or trade down? You can't go defense at number 4. It's not a defensive player out there that's rated as the number 4 player. I think the defensive players you heard, the best cornerback they've been talking about is Surtain. I don't think he's rated that high. He's rated top 10 or top 12, but not at number 4. And Parsons out of Penn State. And I'm not sure if he's rated top 4 or top 5. But yeah, you don't do that. You go. I'd rather trade down and get picks if I had a choice. Jimmy says Julio does nothing wrong. Yeah, right. Orion says bring in that someone to prove that he can compete with Matt. Absolutely. Armand said, I see us drafting a quarterback when we only have one on the roster. You have the keys to the Mercedes Benz. Don't give it up for a Kia. Yeah, that's pretty good, actually, right there. Tidy, you're about right with accountability with Julio. Jets start making quarterback money. And you know what? We claim that Ryan puts up a lot of garbage time stats. Well, guess who he's throwing to during garbage time? You ain't never lied. And folks, y'all think we out of the woods? Guess who's up for their option year coming up? You want to get that contract done. Calvin Ridley's coming. And depending on what Foye Oluokun does this year, he's coming. Y'all got to stop. For as much stuff as we keep talking about with Matt Ryan, there's some other stuff on the table that we got to start thinking about. So, yes, applaud that they got Debo's restructure done today. Got a lot of work to do. Terrell says, I've already prepared my soul that we aren't drafting a quarterback with the 4th pick. We got too many fans that forget that a lot of quarterbacks rode the pine before they became the starter. Yeah, Terrell, and it's obvious that a lot of these folks that are so loyal to Matt are just gonna stay in that particular mode, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with some people going fanboy for a couple of guys. That's fine, but it's something different about this Matt Ryan thing. I think people are just so blinded with that. Just crazy. Marlon, we're overthinking this. Arthur Smith created a successful team with the emphasis on the good defense and the run game, we'll follow that blueprint. Marlon, listen, if he follows that blueprint, that's great. I need to see who's going to be running the ball. You didn't pay Marlon. You didn't play Mike Davis 2 years and $5 million with only $3 million guaranteed to say he's going to run the ball forever. So I have a feeling running back is going to be very high on this list off of the second round. And don't be shocked. Boy, I would hope Najee would be available for that. But don't sleep on Edgerton and the young man out of North Carolina. Don't sleep on those guys either. Don't be shocked if that second round pick is one of those running backs. I believe in that too, Marlon. I believe that. When Matt Ryan first got here, the biggest investment they made, and John made the mention about Obi Mahaley, which was very important, was Michael Turner, who wasn't going to unseat LT at the time. Michael Turner, I think we've argued this before, is the best free agent signing we've made in this franchise. By far. And so we have to think along those lines. We have to. I know I'm near the end. I wanted to holler at y'all. I meant to mention it in the beginning. In the Atlanta Bird game, I'm excited because the admins in the Atlanta Bird game, we are going to have draft night coverage. The five of us. Tidy, Marcus, Brian, Nicholas, and myself will all be on draft night. We will find out together what the Falcons will end up doing on that night. And I know we're going to have plenty of discussion up to that time. I'm sure the other admins will be talking about this pretty soon. But if you get tired of Mel Kiper, if you get tired of folks on ESPN that you don't want to talk to and just want to talk some local folks and talk to people who are more invested in this team and of course, our cast of crazies that we talk to along the line on the post, we will be live on draft night together here in the Atlanta Bird Gang. So if you don't have any plans or you want to turn down the TV and listen to some local talk, and I'm sure we're going to have some fun that day, y'all make sure y'all join us. We'll probably announce some stuff later on, but we will have coverage live, the five of us, and that should be fun on draft night. So stay tuned for some more information on that coming soon. Until then, folks, y'all have a great Sunday. We'll holler at y'all some more. Obviously, we'll break in if there's any Atlanta Falcons news. Please, if you get a chance on a selfish standpoint, go to YouTube and subscribe to Steve's Sports Talk Lounge. This broadcast, as many other ones, will be on there as well. Y'all take care of yourself. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.